Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart isn't just another entry in a franchise that spanned nearly 2 decades, but instead is one of the best games in the franchise. The game no longer feels like a rehash of the series, but now feels emblematic of it as a whole. Ratchet and Clank is funny, Ratchet and Clank is charming, Ratchet and Clank is touching, Ratchet and Clank is beautiful, Ratchet and Clank is pure fun, and that's everything that a video game can and should be. The game once again returns to its gameplay roots back from the PlayStation 2 with responsive controls, preposterous weaponry, new and advanced movement options like hover boots, and the new Rift mechanic. All of these build off of each other to create a fantastic balance of gameplay, thus doing enough to keep building off the natural evolution I felt the series has needed for a while, but while still entirely containing its identity as a Ratchet and Clank game all the way through. When talking about weaponry, we have a good mix of some new and returning weapons. The standout returning weapons are the Bouncer, the Pixelizer, and the Warmonger. The standout new weapons, of course, are the Negatron Glider, the Cold Snap, and the Topiary Sprinkler. The Rhino makes its return with a new installment, the Rhino 8, which brings in items and characters from other dimensions and brings in tons of damage as well. It's also worth mentioning that with the PlayStation 5's haptic feedback, the weapons not only feel different from a gameplay perspective, but also do from a physical perspective thanks to the DualSense controller. Some weapons have different rates of fire or dual functions based on how you use the triggers, as they are now more dynamic than the same buttons we've been pressing for nearly 20 years. I think the standout mechanic in this game is the previously mentioned Rift mechanic, as it is an essential and noticeable part about what makes this game unique and differentiates it from other games. Honestly, with how fast things render, I find myself thinking that if a console tried to run this before, it would have caught on fire. The implementation of this mechanic is select, and I think it's at its best when you find a hidden dimensional pocket with the challenge inside. However, it is also used to perform platforming and mechanics to get you from one place to another in an instant. It's almost a mind-bending experience in comprehending the mechanic for the first time, but it's certainly awe-inspiring. Additionally, I mentioned the implementation of the hover boots in this game. Here they're basically working as futuristic rollerblades as you use the triggers to pump your legs in order to move faster. While I've noticed many players save it for traversing big open spaces, you can use them in small and tight spaces as a way to avoid getting hit and quickly changing your position. Doing this makes the mindless shooting more enjoyable, and it's an idea that I would strongly encourage. There is also a dash maneuver which works as a jump extension and a dodge, which is not only effective but very visually appealing. These new movement options not only aid in combat and traversal, but also exploration. This game is absolutely filled with collectibles. I think collectibles are done sparingly enough for it to not be anywhere near a collectathon, and the game properly rewards you for finding them all. For example, finding 10 spy bots will unlock the Rhino 8, collecting all the orbs will give you information about different dimensions, and gold bolts unlock cheats that change everything from visuals to making yourself invincible, and you use raritanium to upgrade your weapons. This brings me to upgrading weapons. If you played Ratchet and Clank before, this will sound familiar. During your first playthrough, you can upgrade weapons up to 5 times each, making them more powerful. This is done by defeating enemies with said weapons. The skill tree for each weapon is used to upgrade specific aspects of the weapon, and the currency to make the upgrades is the raritanium, which is another collectible. Then once you beat the game, you get to go in the challenge mode, where 5 more subsequent weapon levels are added, and each level allows you to spend more raritanium to upgrade the weapon even more. Additionally, the worlds in the game are fantastical in terms of variety as well as scale, in addition to be diverse environments for the player to traverse. Some worlds are straightforward and others have players going back and forth between dimensions. One of the standout levels is the planet Blazar Prime. It shows 2 alternate versions of a planet, one before and after great disasters in a parallel dimension. The player uses shards to go between the versions of the planet. It serves as a great puzzle platforming, as not every place can be reached in one version of the planet, and it requires the player to go to the other. This is for both collectibles as well as the main story. Overall, this mechanic is executed incredibly well, and it's one of the best parts of the game. It's not hyperbolic to say this is one of the best looking games I've ever seen, as it is by far and away the best looking and performing game on PlayStation 5. I'm not an expert on graphics, and oftentimes I can't even tell if I'm playing in 1080 and 4K at this point, but I can notice the ray tracing, populating particle effects, and the little details in this game. Nefarious City feels like a technical feat, as it's a big and densely packed city unlike anything I've ever seen in a game like Ratchet and Clank. The city actually feels alive, and this is noticeable at every moment. There are an insane amount of vehicles and character models being rendered in the background in high quality, and none of it detracts from the gameplay nor causes any performance issues. The wide variety of planets allows the game to switch environmental biomes frequently, and thanks to the Rift mechanics, the game is popping with pinks and purples in every which way. The game also has a unique lighting system that shows off the minute details throughout. It's fantastic to play a game that really likes to explore its color palette rather than staying one tone throughout. Thanks to this, the game is really capable of creating an experience that makes exploring and going between worlds more enjoyable than its perceivable visual aspects alone. Another thing worth noting is that when I played this game there were some technical issues, but none of them were too punishing, and any soft logs I incurred were no need for a reset, as the game knows how to handle these really weird situations very well. Thanks to there being literally no loading times, you have nothing to lose when incurring such issues with the game. Ratchet and Clank's story continues after several years since their last adventure, picking up on a celebration of countless times they've heroically saved their galaxy. They're ambushed at the ceremony, which is crashed by Thugs for Less, which is now Goons for Less, at the behest of Dr. Nefarious, who plans to steal the Dimensionator in order to go to a universe where he always wins. Prior to that, Clank had repaired the Dimensionator so that Ratchet could go to different dimensions and find his home, a place where all the other Lombaxes are. Overall, I can't say much without spoiling the story, however I will mention that Ratchet and Clank are separated when the alternate universe version of Ratchet, a female Lombax named Rivet, enters the fray. She's part of a resistance that her and other characters you'll meet throughout the game are a part of. It's also worth mentioning that you get to play as both Ratchet and Rivet throughout the game, so be prepared to spend your time between the two of them, as this is as much Rivet's game as it is Ratchet's, and I really appreciate that about the game. There are only minor gameplay differences between them, and they share the same arsenal, so there's no need to worry. Even Kit, Clank's universal counterpart, doesn't affect gameplay, but both characters make an impact, are truly lovable and memorable. Last but not least, I will say that when the game ends, there's definitely room for a sequel, which is critical given how well the game performed amongst critics and consumers alike. I wouldn't be surprised if Rivet and Kit get their own game in the future, and I'm honestly looking forward to it. Before I go on to the next section, I want to talk about how well the game handles themes like loss, forgiveness, and changing yourself to be who you want to be, as well as facing your fears. It approaches these overarching themes particularly well, as it shows real growth from characters that we honestly haven't seen in the series, at least for a long time. I want to avoid spoiling it, but it's something that I can't write this review without mentioning, because not only is the game funny, but it hits the nail on the head in these aspects as well. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart isn't just another entry in a nearly 2-decade-long franchise, nor is it just another 3D platformer. It's special and unique. It certainly nears the top of both of those fields in terms of quality and being an absolute blast to play through. It's a fun experience with tons of free play value thanks to challenge mode, and it's a great change of pace from what many games today offer. That being said, there's certainly other Ratchet and Clank games to play, but very few are close to the peaks of this game, and it's certainly worth the praise and recommendation. Overall, I give Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart a 9 out of 10. Thank you guys so much for watching this. This review was written a while ago, but I finally got around to editing the video. However, I'm planning on doing reviews much more frequently in addition to my top 100 shorts. But if you guys enjoyed and want similar content, be sure to hit that like and that subscribe. I'd also super appreciate it if you hit the notification bell to get notified about new uploads. Last but not least, feel free to join my Discord, check out all my socials, as well as my Star Wars podcast, Outer Rim Radio. I also stream over on Twitch on twitch.tv/Savidge Gaming. Link to that in the description is down there as well. And again, thank you guys so much for watching and take care.